2022. My name is Victoria Griswold, and I have researched the topic of domestic abuse and the varying effects it has on an individual's concept of self before, during, and after the relationship. The subject was a young female between the ages of 18 and 22 with a history of verbal abuse in a romantic relationship. When observing the subject, I applied the concepts of self-esteem, self-concept, and self-disclosure, and explained how the repercussions of verbal abuse influence these three notions, ultimately shaping the victim's identity. The first notion is self-esteem. This is how you feel about who you are as a person, or the amount of confidence you attain. Researchers have found that self-esteem varies over time and is responsive to the environment in which the individual is in. Therefore, it doesn't come as a surprise that someone who is experiencing physical and psychological violence is more likely to have a diminished sense of self. One explanation for decreased self-esteem is that many victims tend to lose their sense of self, or who they are, because they do not prioritize their own needs before their abusers, out of fear that they might anger the abuser and cause more violence. I became friends with Melanie years before her relationship with Ryan. She was vibrant, charismatic, talented, and full of life. Anytime she entered a room, no matter where she went, she always left having made a new friend. She had goals for herself, like launching her own jewelry line and working towards a healthier lifestyle, both mentally and physically. Fast forward to present day, and I can hardly recognize Melanie. All of her goals and dreams have been put on the back burner in order to please Ryan's needs. Every time she begins to create jewelry in her free time, Ryan makes snide comments about how useless Melanie is because her creative outlet will never provide them with any means. Rather, he demands that she uses that time to clean their house, only after reminding her that she is worthless without him, that he pays for all the bills and the roof over their head. At the expense of Ryan's needs and belittlement, Melanie has gained 80 pounds, and he has not let her forget it. He continuously criticizes her image, and when she tries to do something about her physical health, like working out or dieting, he tells her that she isn't strong enough to adhere to such a lifestyle. Although she tries her best to please him, he is never satisfied. This only diminishes her self-esteem even further. That confident, free-spirited, and lively individual is no longer present on the surface. This too highlights another explanation proposed by Dutton and Painter, where a woman's sense of self continues to decrease because of the batter's critical comments that continue to be made regardless of Melanie's attempts to meet his demands. Moreover, research shows that victims of domestic abuse tend to lack a positive concept of self, in other words, self-concept, which is essentially your identity. It is composed of your stable ideas and reflections about who you are and what you know about yourself. Often victims begin to see themselves as self-surveilling, where their identities are shaped by the fear that at any moment, one minor slip-up could set off their abuser. Thus, victims struggle to view themselves as individuals, separate from their abusers, and as a result, they suffer from depression, stress, and a sense of helplessness. In fact, these same repercussions greatly affect a victim's ability to confide in another person or seek professional help. Simply put, abuse of any kind can hinder a victim's means to self-disclose, which is the act of intentionally giving others information about ourselves that we believe to be true, but that we think they don't already have. Take distance and denial, for example. Research shows that victims tend to distance themselves from loved ones and deny that they are being abused out of fear of the abuser, shame, and a feeling of helplessness. Friendships later, that Melanie confided in her closest friends about the abuse. We all comforted her and told her that none of this was her fault. I reminded her that I too had once been in an abusive relationship and could relate. We made a plan on how she would move forward, like joining a support group, and get out of the relationship. I left that night feeling hopeful for her. Unfortunately, Melanie went back to Ryan a few weeks later and immediately began to isolate herself from us again. Furthermore, research shows that victims who seek support may directly replace lost resources and may affirm positive personal qualities. This is the very reason we encouraged her to seek professional help, and still continue to, no matter how long it takes for her to find that strength to leave. Because it's necessary to remember that it is first the potential oppressor within that we must resist, the potential victim within that we must rescue. Otherwise, we cannot hope for an end to domination, for liberation.